Yeah, I mean it's like white rock as um, as a genre, as a community, as a consumer base, as an industry, still kind of favors um, white people playing instruments, performing live. Black music, we know, in the '80s began to shift very much to being a music that was more defined by what was on the radio than what happened at the concert. You know what I mean? So you got that kind of split going on, and it's just made it kind of untenable, for black instrumentalists, certainly to have bands that can go out and play in the black world. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't really, Chitlin Circuit doesn't exist. That club circuit doesn't exist. We know, again, because, you know, if you travel to the Detroits and the Chicagos and the Jacksonvilles and, the Houstons, like, people will take you by those neighborhoods where the black club scene used to be thriving. Done. It's been done. I mean, I think the Howard Theater in D.C., I mean, just reopened, but I think it was closed, it's been closed for 20 something years, and that was like kind of a mainstay, on the circuit. So there's all these reasons why um, anybody kind of black who actually was interested in becoming like a proficient instrumentalist um, would go in another route. You know what I mean? In terms of, they go into the studio. You know what I mean? Or they go to Vegas. Or they try to, um, they go in academia. Which a lot of, or they go to the church. The church is actually, I mean, that's an answer to your question too. You know what I mean? It's like you can go on YouTube, man. You can see like all these young brothers in these church bands who are throwing down on bass and drums and organ and guitar, especially. And then you can see them play in the church situation, and then some of the videos they'll post are like them at like um, in the church after hours, just jamming. I mean, some stuff that just sounds like okay. They're gonna take Return to Forever up into a Pentecostal zone and then take it out further than that. But the thing you're conscious of when you're watching those clips is that they are literally just playing for themselves. Like they're doing this deep experimentation. It's almost like there's like a Minton's, like in terms of the birthplace of bebop going on in every one of those major mega churches, like all throughout the South, with these young cats playing like 6 and 8 string bass. You know what I mean? Like these cats are into it technically. You can see that like some of the you can see that with some of the bands that there are guys who were in some of those funk bands or were jazz band guys. Like now they're the music directors, choir directors, they're the teachers. So they're bringing like all of those chops into the sound of modern gospel as well. But again, it's marooned kind of you know um, off of the whole kind of pop music scene. So it only exists there. And it doesn't really have a venue to travel kind of beyond the
The
church.
one place where I am seeing, you know, black bands with real musicianship that are touring is New Orleans brass bands.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a Soul Rebels, Rebirth,
yeah, yeah.
Hypnotic. There's tons of them.
Yo, yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think the thing is that I mean New Orleans, um, it's not like New Orleans ever outside of the meters, you know, um, really you know, got to make a profound contribution to that '70s funk era. I mean, they did certainly in terms of the sound. I mean, just the rhythm section. I mean, alone, and a lot of musicians from Miles Davis on like picked up, on those beats and that feel and yeah. I mean, it set the foundation of American music. But I think the thing is like you're also dealing with this thing now. If you want to look at all the kind of white bands inside the indie rock thing who are doing funk based music, doing R&B bass, like '60s and '70s R&B, rare groove stuff. You know what I mean? You're dealing with that kind of perennial and perpetual lag time between an innovative sound in black music.
I'm sorry. What?
I was just, whenever we have a natural pause, I need to change your battery.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I'm gonna do is this is really it.
Okay.
So let's just keep rolling.
Because the last few things he said, your radio transmitter is getting low.
Okay.
I can hear it.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things you're looking at in terms of that phenomenon is it's just this lag time that always exists between an innovation in black music and then its adoption by, kind of a generation of white hipsters, quote unquote, 20 years later. So, yeah, I mean, all these musics that were really marginal, like in the 80s, like Detroit techno, Chicago house, I mean, look, they've become the dominant sound of kind of popular music, certainly in Europe now. I just read a piece about how Vegas is now like completely embracing like what they're calling electronic dance music, which is that sound Ron Hardy, Jeff Mills, Derek May, all those cats developed, in Detroit and Chicago, in the mid 80s. So, Afrobeat is another example of the same thing. Like, if you went to concerts, or if you were hanging out in those clubs, like in the 80s, it was like, I mean, like the nearest white people were probably like 20 miles, from the epicenter of the thing, you know what I mean? And like, would have probably, asked to be rescued if they woke up and found themselves anywhere in those neighborhoods. But, um, but I mean, again, it's just a testament to the power of the music, which we know. I mean, goddamn, I mean, it's like, we've known since ragtime, like some kind of black popular music as it evolves is going to emerge to become like the dominant influence on the progression of music in the 20th and now the 21st century. So this music, which was visionary and innovative in the 70s, has now been kind of picked up as a classic American style, and of course, if you're a young musician, whatever ethnicity, and you tap into that vein, you're like, oh man, this is amazing. This is much more interesting to play than like like alt rock. You know what I mean? It's like I can get off on so many more ways than just singing some song with like a grungy kind of cast to it, or a 3-chord rock kind of quality to it. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many opportunities for me as a young musician to really express myself, not just be a background player. It's like if I'm a bass player in an indie rock band, I'm a bass player in an indie rock band. I'm a bass player in a funk band, or a band that's influenced by funk. I can be Les Claypool. You know what I mean? It's like, or like my man does Shannon and the Dap Kings and those things. Like, yeah, I mean, you get to move into these interesting spaces as a producer, as a composer, as a touring musician, playing soul, classic soul and funk music. I mean, I think on a certain level, the attraction to it is just it's just so much more rewarding to play than some of the other options. And then if you're on the more kind of experimental side, in terms of the indie rock thing now, it's like, yeah, well, once again, like, just rhythmically, and sonically, it's just so much more interesting than what rock had become, kind of by the mid '90s.
Okay, let's take a quick